Welcome back to Singapore Tonight. Now, a slew of measures to help Singaporeans own homes at various stages of their lives were announced during the Committee of Supply debate in Parliament yesterday.
And for more on this, National Development Minister Lawrence Wong joins us to share his insights on the announcements. Minister, thanks for coming in. So firstly, housing usually top of mind for young families, newlyweds and the like. How will the new initiatives help sort of this group of people?
Well, Steve, first of all, home ownership has always been a key priority for the government. So we will continue to do everything we can to ensure affordable and accessible homes for Singaporeans, especially for those who are buying their homes for the first time, the first-timers. On the affordability side, we continue to sell flats at discounted prices. There are generous grants on top of that. So with the grants, first-timers, many of them do not need to pay cash for the down payment. And for their housing loans, vast majority of them will be able to service the loans using their CPF with little or even zero cash. So that's our basic affordability commitment to every generation, both now and the future. On the accessibility side, we continue to build new flats, and we put them out for sale through our usual sales exercises. Virtually all of them are able to get a flat within 2 or 3 tries. There are some with more urgent needs and they want the flat faster, and that's why we've introduced an open booking system. Basically, any unselected flats from the sales exercises, we take them, we pool them together, and we make them available through this open booking system, which you can apply anytime, all through the year. So we hope this will be faster, more convenient, and it will give better access to those with urgent needs.
But you're not leaving everyone behind, in fact, not leaving anyone behind, because you also announced several other measures. There's the Lift Access Grant for mobility issues, as well as housing options for unwed parents. How do you ensure that this diverse needs, are met?
Well, Glenda, we recognize that Singapore society is becoming more diverse, so our housing policies have to adapt and adjust to changing needs. And that's what we've been trying to do. So for single unwed parents, for example, in the past, we considered them as singles when they applied for a flat, which meant that they would only be eligible to apply for a flat if they were 35 years of age, and they could only apply for up to a 2-room flat. But we've reviewed this. We know that there are young single unwed parents with children, and we do want to allow them to have a good home for themselves and their children. So we've now changed the rules, and we allow them to buy up to a 3-room new flat, so long as they have the financial means. And it's the same for lift access. Many of us grew up in HDB flats without lifts on every floor, and it was never a problem in the past. But as population aged, more people need lift access, more people have mobility issues. So we have done lift upgrading for most blocks, but there are still 150 blocks without direct lift access. And to do lift access for these blocks, firstly, some of them are technically just impossible. It's not feasible, and others are very expensive. So we've decided for residents in these blocks, if they are those with mobility issues, we will give them a new lift access grant for them to sell their place and then buy a new home with lift access. It can be from the resale market, it can be from HDB, and if there's anyone in such a circumstance, I would ask them to go to the HDB branch office, and we will offer them the appropriate assistance.
Yeah, it's good that they can also find a solution for their issues. You mentioned aging population and aging Singaporeans. Seniors also will be getting more options to monetize their flats with regards to sort of their retirement years. Tell us more about that, because that will be very top of mind as there's an increasing pool of those people.
Well, so the elderly have a different concern. Many of them already own their homes, but they are more concerned about retirement income. And so from time to time, you hear people say, I'm asset-rich, cash-poor. We give them 2 options to unlock the value of their homes. They can right-size, they can sell their present place, and then they move to a smaller unit or a unit with lower value, they unlock some proceeds. Or they can opt for something called a lease buyback, where they sell the tail end of their lease to the government, and then they keep a remaining lease that's sufficient for them to live in the same place for the rest of their life. So regardless of the option they take up, they will get some proceeds, and so long as they put some money into their CPF retirement account, we will give them a bonus. So in this budget, we have simplified the conditions for getting the bonus, and we've enhanced it by 50%. So the maximum bonus is now $30,000. So it's one way where we can enhance the retirement security for our seniors.
But you also mentioned this new HDB Green Towns program, and we know it's a 10-year program to make HDB towns more sustainable and livable, and that's by the year 2030. So the question is, how critical is infrastructure when it comes to pushing for something like this that is sustainable and yet it helps to mitigate the effects of climate change?
Well, infrastructure is important. I mean, you need infrastructure for a greener, more eco-friendly living environment. You need infrastructure like solar panels for clean power. You need energy-efficient lighting. You need charging infrastructure for electric vehicles, which you just talked about in your program just now. But infrastructure alone is not sufficient. So for example, in all our new HDB blocks today, we have dual chutes. One for normal waste and one for recyclable waste. But having separate chutes alone will not solve the problem if people are not separating their waste to begin with. It will not make any difference. So really it comes down to individual and social responsibility as well. And we hope that the infrastructure improvements we are making will serve as a catalyst to motivate Singaporeans to change their lifestyle habits and to embrace sustainability as a way of life.
While we've got you here, Minister, I've got to ask you a question of the day, I suppose. COVID-19 dominating most of our bulletins at the moment. Today we've seen 5 more cases, and we've heard from the Health Minister today saying that we should expect perhaps some more cases as well as it spreads around the world. Now, you're one of the co-chairs for the COVID-19 task force. What do you make of how we're sort of seeing things and how Singapore's coped? Because we also reported earlier that the Catholic churches are set to sort of reopen their masses in a couple of weeks' time. Are we sort of beyond the dangers, or is there a chance that we're sort of seeing a safer Singapore at the moment?
I thought the Health Minister said just now that...
there's more coming in. That's right.
I think we have to be mentally prepared that the virus is spreading very quickly around the world. The first phase was in China, but now you are seeing it spread in countries outside of China. So we have to be prepared that we will be subject to new waves of infection, particularly Singapore is a very small, open city connected to the world. We have put in place some border controls where we see and identify new epidemic centers, but there may well be undetected cases in countries that are not proactively testing for them. And we cannot also shut ourselves and isolate ourselves from the world. So at some point, we will be subject and exposed to new waves of infection. And we do need to be mentally prepared for that. What should we do? I think the best precaution we can do is to redouble our efforts within Singapore, uphold high standards of hygiene, both personally as well as in public spaces, and again, be socially responsible. If you're sick, then don't go out, don't go to work, see a doctor right away, and then if the doctor gives you an MC, then stay at home. So these are simple but effective ways where we can slow down the spread of the virus within Singapore, and we can, what we call, flatten the epidemic curve. When we do that, we potentially will slow the spread, flatten the curve, and the advantage is that we do not have a sudden surge of cases that could potentially overwhelm our hospital system. That's a key.
We mentioned there, other countries as well, they now have more cases, and we're going to be seeing a next wave where there could be the potential of them coming in. So then the question is, if we can't contain all those, do we then lower to DORSCON yellow? Or when do we do that?
I don't think we should think about how all of these indicators reflect on whether DORSCON should be orange or yellow. I think we are at orange now. The key is to adjust our measures. Whether it's DORSCON orange or yellow, it really doesn't matter, because those are color codes. But really what's more important are the range of measures that we put in place that need to be adjusted as circumstances change. So for the time being, at this stage of the epidemic, where we can still identify centers of epidemic happening outside us, it is appropriate to put in place some border controls so that we can slow down the number of imported cases coming into Singapore. At some point in time when this is widespread and you can no longer identify the external sources, then border controls become less relevant. And at that point in time, we really need to look at what we can do within Singapore, mitigation measures that will be helpful, maybe even some social distancing measures at schools or workplaces. So these are possibilities that we can consider along the way. But we will have to then stay vigilant, stay alert, and as the situation evolves, it's a very fast-moving and fluid situation, we have to then adjust our measures accordingly.
Right. Indeed. Thank you so much, Minister, for coming in and speaking to us. We've been speaking with National Development Minister Lawrence Wong.